Om Shuklam Varadaram Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarvavighnopashantaye Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murtibheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay. So we are going to look at this stotram, whose name is Vishnu Shatpadi Stotram. It is attributed to Adi Shankaracharya. It's a prayer of 6 verses. Shatpadi. Shatpadi, Shat is 6. So it's 6 verses are there, and then there is a concluding verse also. It's very profound in its meaning. So we will look at this. It is addressed to, it's a prayer to Lord Vishnu, to Parameshwara. So invoked in the form of Narayana. And he prays for many things, for adhikaritvam, to be able to gain knowledge and gain that oneness with the Lord, with Narayana. So let's start with the first verse. Avinayam apanaya Vishnu damaya manaf shamaya vishayam rigatrishnam bhutadayam vistaraya taraya samsara sagarataha. Okay. There is also a meter in Telugu prosody, a meter called as Shatpadi meter. So it's a complex meter. Many different ways are there to recite that. But anyway, so this is supposed to be in that particular meter. I don't know Telugu, but it begins with this prayer. Avinayam apanaya Vishnu. Vishnu is Sambuddhi, is addressing Narayana. Hey Vishnu, O Lord. Avinayam apanaya. It's a little request. Apanaya means please remove, please get rid of. And what is that he wants to get rid of? Is this avinayam? Absence of vinaya. It's a little unusual way of asking, praying for something. Normally, when we pray for things, different things, what I want. It may be objects, it may be certain attitudes, it may be what I'm going through. So I want to gain certain adhikaritvam for knowledge and so on, compassion. So we ask for things that we desire, that we want, spiritual or otherwise. Or we pray to get rid of things that we don't want. I want to get rid of my sorrow, my anger, my distress, my pain, illness, and so on. So I want to get rid of things I don't want. I ask for things that I desire, that are desirable to me. Here, I'm asking, the devotee asks for, please help me get rid of this lack of vinayam. There are two negatives. Lack of vinayam. Vinayam is humility. So please help me, please get rid of me, from me, this lack of humility. He's not asking for humility. It's interesting. So humility is something even you don't even ask for, because even in the asking, there is a certain ego involved. If I say I want humility, I want humility, I'm praying for humility. Then Bhagavan asked me, okay, why do you want humility? You know, no, it's nice to be humble. I want to be humble. You know, because then people will think I'm a humble person. It's a great quality to be humble. So, like, when you accomplish something and then you get a big medal and then you go there and you receive it and you be thankful. I'm honored to receive this particular recognition from you. And generally they will say here, I'm humbled. I'm humbled. I'm humbled by what you have given me. I really don't deserve it. You know, there are others who deserve it more. That's the implication. That doesn't mean that you take it back. I still want it. I still want it. But then in that humility, when human humility, one doesn't talk about one's humility. So in humility is to recognize what one has, but at the same time see it as a given, as an endowment. You know, whatever we are able to accomplish in life is not all because of us. There are other people involved. There are other factors involved. There are unknown factors involved. There is Daivam involved. A humble person is able to recognize all of that. It's not that the person is not aware of their capability. They're also aware of their lack of capabilities, of their limitations, and they are grateful for what they have. And that is really the nature of humility. So that recognition and appreciation of Daivam, you know, a person who values, if one values oneself, one values others. If one doesn't value oneself, one devalues others. Because that is the only way I can feel valuable. I can feel better than somebody if I devalue them. You know, all those are struggles within ourselves of our own self-esteem. But Vinayam is something, humility is something that comes. It's like love, it's like bhakti. These are sentiments that just happen to manifest when the attitudes are proper, when the thinking is proper, when there is understanding of something bigger than what is there around us. And then I recognize my place in the bigger scheme. There is Bhagavan, there is His grace in whatever I have, also in whatever I don't have. So, so He says, please help me. But we lack that, you know, we lack that humility to whatever degree. And so, to whatever degree we lack it, perhaps. So I pray, hey, Bhagavan, please help me, or please get rid of me this lack of humility that I see in myself. So what do I get out of it? It doesn't matter. Humility is not something one wears as an ornament, as an abhushanam, much less you wear as a crown of achievement. Look, I am the most humble person of around me among all the people that are there. That is not humility. It's a strange sentiment. It's there, we value it, but at the same time, it is not something you ask for. It is something that happens to you. It's something like sannyasa. You don't ask for it. It is something that happens to you. So, hey Vishnu, avinayam apanaya, damaya manaha. You know, manaha is my mind. Dhamma is control. So mind is we look upon it as an instrument. It's an instrument that is connected in a twofold way. It's connected to my sense organs, to my perceptions, organs of perception. So when I perceive different things, when I hear, I see, I touch, I smell, I taste, in all these perceptions, there is something behind that integrates them. Each sense organ perceives its own field of operation. So the eyes see form and color. But then all these different perceptions have to be brought together into one integrated experience. And that is something that the mind does, is the function of the mind. Or we can say that whatever it is inside, in my antakaranam, inside, is called mind, the one that performs this function. Not only that, that is with respect to the sense organ, that is called dhamma, you know. So normally my mind is the one that is behind, it wields the senses. It's supposed to. Senses are mere reporters. They report what is there, what they cognize. Mind is the one that integrates it, you know. So mind has to be in control. Mind has to be in charge. But what happens? It's the experiences that are generated by the senses. They are the ones that pull us, you know. They pull the mind away from itself, and we go in all different directions of the senses. So that is a mind that is a wandering mind. There's a distractible mind, a mind that is all over the place, that is not available to itself, you know. So Dhamma is a capacity where the mind is available to itself. Mind is also a seat of emotions, you know, and sentiments. So those are also, that is another function. It's another function of the mind. So at the level of the thinking, at the thinking level. So he says, please, that that please help me have a mind that is able to be in charge, in control of my world experiences, you know, so that I am able to manage them rather than they being able to manage me or control me. Not only that, Shamaya Vishaya Mriga Trishna, you know. So Vishaya Trishna. Trishna is a longing, you know. It's an intense longing. It's called Trishna. So Vishayas, when I see objects outside, and then I develop a attachment to the objects, and then I start longing for them. That is the problem that we have. You know, so, and I start longing for them, and then lack until I achieve it, I become sad. I miss not having it. And so that intensity prompts me to action. In Gita, it is said, Rajo ragatmakam vidhi Trishna Sanga Samudbhavam. Trishna, this intense longing, is born of asanga, of not of being separate from my object of desire. And then what does this do? He says, Tan nibadnati kaunteya karma sangena dehina. And so this binds me through actions. This is the one that prompts me then to go after the object, so which I do in all kinds of ways. So so in keeping with the right way or wrong way, because I have to gain what I am seeking. So this kind of also is the control of the mind being in charge, but at the level of thinking, at the level of desires. That is what is called as shama. Shamadama are the two very important aspects of one's spiritual growth, you know. He says. Not only that, Bhuta Dayam Vistaraya. Bhuta Daya. Daya is compassion. It is empathy. So empathy towards all beings. He says, please Bhuta Daya Vistaraya. Let it expand, you know, let it expand. He doesn't say, please give me Daya, because this Daya is inherent. You know. Empathy is something which is inborn. You even see it in infants. We see it in animals. You see it all around us. You know, one is born with the capacity for empathy, but it is also something that is eroded very easily. It's among the first casualties of the growth process, because hurt and disappointments starts eroding our capacity to empathize with others, with other beings. So he says empathy is there, we are born with it, but we lose it. So here, please let it grow, let it expand, let it accommodate all beings, all the bhutas. Our compassionate, we all have compassion, but it's very limited. It's limited to those who are around us, limited to those who are close to us, to our family. to our extended family, to our friends, to our neighbors, perhaps to our, so this is just very, very selective, but let it be beyond that, let it grow to include any living being. So compassion towards all beings, it's easy to be compassionate towards those we like, towards those we are dependent on, towards those from whom we get something. But it's more difficult to be compassionate towards those who don't mean anything, who don't do anything, who are just bystanders of our life, Nirguneshu api satveshu says dayam kurvanti sadavaha. The one who's able to have that kind of a compassion for beings who one doesn't may not even need or don't do anything for you. Such a person is called as a sadhu, says. Taraya samsara sagara. Please help me cross over this ocean of samsara. We all know that, we hear that a lot. So this, the life of becoming, the life of again and again, birth and death, again coming and going, this kind of endless cycle called as samsara chakra is likened to an ocean, And so because ocean is something which is vast, it is fraught with danger, and it is very difficult to cross. We don't even see the other end point to it. You wonder whether you will ever reach the shore again. So this is something impossible to do. And so please help me cross over by giving me all the tools that are required in order to overcome this samsara sagara. This. So beautiful metaphors when in Ramayana, when Hanumanji has to go to Sri Lanka and he flies over, is to fly over the ocean from India to Sri Lanka. He has to go there, and then on the way he encounters many obstacles, and those obstacles, if we have time, I will mention it to you later. But these obstacles are the ones that indicate these obstacles of life, and how he overcomes each one of them with a different way, with a different tactic, and thus he rediscovers the inner strength that he had, which he did not know, which Jambavan had to remind him. But only after, while he was crossing, after overcoming these obstacles, it he realized that, yeah, this is really my capacity. This is really what I have. And all that became real for him, And that is what life does. That is what the obstacles are meant to do, he says. Number 2, Divyadhuni Makarande Parimala Paribhoga Satchidanande Shripati Padaravinde Bhavabhaya Kheda Chide Vande. Vande, Aham Vande. I prostrate, I offer my salutations to Sri Vishnu, Lord Vishnu. Shripati, the one who is the consort of Shri, the one who is the consort of Mahalakshmi. I prostrate unto his feet. He says, Padara Vinde. Shripati Padara Vinde. Aham Vande. I salute the feet, the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, Sri Vishnu, who is the consort of Mahalakshmi, he says. Then Divya Dhuni Makarande, he says. Divya Dhuni Makarandaha is the name of Sri Vishnu. Lord Vishnu is called as Divya Dhuni Makarandaha. So Divya Dhuni is a sound, Divya Dhuni, the divine sound, a sound that is heavenly, And what sound are we talking about? We are talking about the sound of Ganga ji, Ganga ji is called as Divya Dhuni. She's also called as Suradhuni, So because she came from the heavens, And if you've been to Ganga, And if you've seen Gangaji, especially further up the north, so it is really something. From a distance, you can hear the sound of Ganga, and then you really feel that you're somewhere you have reached. It's a beautiful, beautiful sound. And he says that Divya Dhuni Makarandaha, like even Makaranda is Amritam. It is a nectar. The nectar that is Gangaji. And how is she a nectar? Because she purifies. She is the Ganga is the sister, daughter of Himavan, and older sister of Parvati. And then so Parvati wanted to marry Lord Shiva. Gangaji is requested by the Devas to purify the heavens. So she is flowing around in the heavens. And then later on, by the tapas of Bhagirath, she, with lot of penance, which was done not only by him, but even by his ancestors. So she comes down, she is brought down, she agrees to come down to the earth in order to remove the papam, papas of the humanity. So he says, like she removes the papas of humanity. So similarly are your feet, your lotus feet, which remove the papam that are so the jivas afflictions and their papa karmas. So not only that, Ganga represents jnanam. She's jnana Ganga. So just like knowledge, so Shruti Jnanam, knowledge of Atma, knowledge of Parameshwara, knowledge of the Lord, knowledge of myself, etc. So this knowledge that we talk about, so that is there, it is ancient because it is factual. So anything factual, that knowledge connected to anything factual never changes. It is always the same. It will never change. It was never changed, didn't change from before. And so Ganga is like that. Ganga is Ganga. So she's changing all the time because Ganga is never the same. And any given moment, next moment she is different. She just flows constantly. But even though she flows, she is Ganga. She is the same. She is the one who blessed all of us. He blessed she blesses us. She blessed our ancestors. She blessed our parents, our grandparents. I know my parents went there. My grandparents went to Ganga. My great grandparents. All of this. So for us, it is something which is very, very, very meaningful. So he says, Divya Dhuni Makarande. Your lotus feet are like that. He says, Bhagwan, and she's Tribhuvana Tarini. Ganga has another name. She's called Tribhuvana Tarini. She's the one who, through Jnanam, helps me cross over all the three bhuvanas, all the life of this whole samsara, the jagat, the srishti, the whole creation, helps me cross over the life of limitations. So she is Tribhuvana Tarini and Uttaranaha. Uttarana. Lord Vishnu is also called as Uttaranaha. He's the one who helps me cross over this life of samsara, he says. Parimala Paribhoga Sachidanande. Parimala is fragrance. So this Sachi is the one who is Sachidananda Swarupam, the one who pervades, who is in the form of Sat and Chit, the one who is in the form of consciousness, in the form of awareness. So there is nothing outside its scope. There is nothing outside the scope of consciousness. It pervades, it is all pervasive. He is Sarva Vyapi. So thus not only that, he is Ananda Swarupam. Not only Ananda Swarupam himself, but the source of all Ananda, the source of all joy that is within me, that I experience. So is all joy coming from within, from that Paramatma, from that Antaryami, the one who abides in me as my Swarupam, as Atma, that being the source of all. So he says, Parimala Paribhoga Sachidanande. Even the joys that are born of bhoga, the limited joys that are born of experiencing the world, even they all have source in the same Narayana alone. So, Bhava Bhaya Kheda Chide. The one who, Kheda is stress. Stress born of what? Bhava Bhayam. The stresses that are born of the fears of this samsara. Bhava is samsara. So the one who removes, chid is to cut. Chidyate, vidyate, hridaya gantrihi, chidyate sarva samshayaha. So the one who removes, the one who destroys all of this kind of stresses born of the fear of samsara. So, yeah. Number 3. Satyapi bhedapagame nath tavaham navamamakeenastvam samudro hitarangaha kvachana samudro natarangaha. Natha, Natha, the Lord, the one who protects is called Natha, So, hey Natha, O Lord, O Bhagavan Sri Vishnu, the one who protects everybody. Hey Natha, he says, Satyapi, Bhedapagame, Satyapi, Satyapi, even though what happens? Bheda apagame. Bhedam is the differences, the differences between we experience the whole world as different. There are three things that are there in life for an individual. There is the individual, there is the world that I experience, and there is the cause of both of us. I find myself in this world. I didn't bring myself here, neither did I create this world. I find myself here experiencing this world as an individual. This is Jiva, Jagat, and Ishvara. And how are they connected? How are they connected to each other? Where have they come from? What is the source? What is the cause? What is the effect? These all are experienced by me as different from each other. There is Bheda. Bheda is differences. So I am different from the world. The world is different from me. I am different from Bhagavan. Bhagavan is different from the world. So, etc. Everything is that is my experience in life. But is that the truth? I find that not every experience of mine is the truth. So my experience are my perceptions. My cognitions, my perceptions, my understanding, which includes errors also, which includes misunderstandings, it includes misperceptions, it includes all kinds of things. So what is the truth here, really speaking? So he says, Bheda apagame, when all these differences are removed, when all these differences are resolved, when I see the truth of all of it, when I see the truth, then Shastram says all the differences are resolved for an individual. And the person, the jiva, he discovers oneness. Because the cause and the effect are not really different from each other. An effect is nothing but a cause, so manifested in another form, in a different form. An effect is that which doesn't exist separate from the form, the cause. Like a pot and the clay, from which it has come. So thus he says, when the differences between me are and you are resolved, Satyapi Bheda Pagame, then what happens? What happens? This is the discovery. This is what I discover. This is what the jiva discovers, the individual discovers. Tvam aham. He says, Tava aham. Tava aham. I am yours, he says. I am your amsha. I am a part of you. This is my discovery. I am not separate from you. Aham tava amshaha. Aham tava. I am yours. He says. I am not distinct or separate from you. Like the pot saying that, telling the clay that I have come from you. I am yours. You're the karanam. I am the karanam. Na mam. akinatvam. Namam akinatvam. Namam akinatvam. You are not part of me. Okay, you're not part of me. It's interesting. Very, very profound verse this is. So what happens here? We think there's one, there is divinity within me. It's all aikyam, oneness. And in what there is only one. So I say, okay, there is only one. I and the Lord are not separate. Jiva and Ishvara, there is oneness. So there is oneness between the two means, so they are not separate, not distinct from each other. Advaita talks about that. So as an individual, I think, okay, when I discover that, what happens? What happens? I become one with God. I become one with the Lord. Or the Lord becomes one with me. Lord becomes one with me. Because it's only one. Right? So I can look at it two ways. Either I become one with Lord, because we are the same. I discover that divinity. Or that means I'll become divine. I don't think I'm divine now. But in that Atma Jnanam, I become divine. Then what happens to Bhagavan? No, Bhagavan, I mean, I become, we still think of that I becoming something. I becoming something. Here, what he's saying is, even when that difference goes away, I am still yours, but you are not me. In other words, the cause, the effect is the cause. The pot is the clay. The pot will always be the clay. It's never different. But the pot becomes the clay, but the clay doesn't become the pot. So relatively speaking. So because from a relative standpoint, when you look at it, you always see the difference. From the cause standpoint, if you see, there is no pot. Really speaking, there is no pot. When you look at it from the standpoint of clay, there is no pot. When you look at it from the standpoint of pot, then clay is the cause, pot is the effect, pot is a part of clay. Clay is not pot. So the difference is when I look at it from the standpoint of the pot, from the effect, not when I look at it from the standpoint of the cause. When I look at it from the standpoint of the cause, what happens to the effect? What happens? There is no effect. There is no effect. From the standpoint of the cause, there is no effect. From the standpoint of the clay, there is no pot. From the standpoint of the Lord, there is no jiva. There is no jiva. So that is the discovery of the devotee who has found that oneness with the Lord. He is not there. He effaces himself. It's not that he effaces himself. He is effaced. He is effaced in a sense because the pot is no longer a pot, doesn't recognize himself as a pot. So he says, I am a part of you because I came from you. But at the same time, I cannot say that you are a part of me. So he says, so aham tava aham na mam akina tvam. He says, yatha, just as he gives an example, metaphor here. Samudro hi tarangaha. Like the wave. I mentioned the pot and the clay. Here he says, like the wave and the ocean. He says the ocean is the cause from which the wave has come. The effect has come. When there is oneness, there is a wave and there is a ocean. And then they are not essentially different. The wave is essentially water. The ocean is essentially water. From the standpoint, their essential nature, the truth of themselves, from the standpoint of the fact, there is water alone. There is one water. There are no two waters. But then one is a cause, one is an effect. From the ocean, the waves come. Unto the ocean, the waves go back. So in the ocean, the waves are sustained. The ocean is the Bhagavan, Ishvara. Waves are the individual. They come and go. They change. He says, the ocean now discovers that there is oneness. Essentially, there is no difference between me and Bhagavan. This both are essentially water, but then I am the one as a wave. I came from the ocean. I go back into the ocean. Then not that the ocean is the wave, but the wave is the ocean. So he says, Samudraho hi tarangaha, kvachana samudraha na tarangaha. Ocean doesn't become one with the wave. The wave becomes one with the ocean, even though essentially there is only one. You know. That's why Sri Hanumanji, his attributor, says this to Sri Rama. He says, it's a very famous line. Deha buddhya tava dasosmi. He says, Jiva buddhya tava amshakam. Atma buddhya tvamevaham iti me nischita matihi. He says, when I look at myself from the standpoint of the body, then he says, Deha buddhya tava dasaha. I am your servant, I am here to serve you, because from the body standpoint, this is how it is. I am a body individual being in part of this whole scheme, part of the whole manifest universe. He says, when I look at it, look at myself as the individual, as a living being, is as a jiva. He says, Deha buddhya tava dasosmi, jiva buddhya, as an individual. He says, Tava amshakam, I am your amsha. I have come from you. You are the cause, I am the effect, he says. Atma buddhya, when I look at it as an antaryami, Atma, what is this Atma of mine? There is no Atma of mine. The Atma of mine is antaryami. There is antaryami, Paramatma is Atma. And then there is no mind there. There is only one Paramatma. There is only one Narayana. There is no I am Narayana. There is no I am the divinity in me is divinity alone. It is not me. So that is what is the Antaryamin. So here he says, Atma Buddhya, when I look at it, then it is just you alone. There is really nobody else. Iti me nischita matihi. This is my understanding. Nishchitam, clear. This is my clear understanding. This is how I see it. This is how I recognize it. These are the words attributed to Hanumanji, he says. Number 4. Udritanaga Vidanuja Danuja Kula Mitra Mitra Shashi Drishte Drishte Bhavati Prabhavati Nabhavati Kim Bhavati Raskaraha. Adrita, Udrita, Udrita is to lift up. Lord Vishnu, hey Narayana, that's on the prayer to him. He says, you are the one who lifted the Giri, Govardhanam. He is talking about the mountains. So as Sri Krishna, you lifted the Govardhana Parvatam, he says. Nagabhid Anuja, you who are Nagabhid Anujaha is another name for Lord Vishnu. Anujaha means the one who follows, birth, the younger one, the younger brother. You are the younger brother of who? Tanagabhid. Tanaga is the mountain. Mountain is called Tanaga. Wait, let me get what happened. Okay. Nagabhid. Naga is the mountain, he says. Naga is a mountain. Na gam. Na gachati. The one that doesn't move around. It is stationary. It's called Naga, which is another name for mountain. Nagabhid is the one who broke the mountain, who divided the mountain, who cut off, who divided the mountain, cut the mountains. Who's that? Indra. In the Puranas, there is a story. So it talks about the mountains at one point were not stationary. Okay. They moved around. Who knows? Perhaps they all came as meteors, But anyway, so then they had wings, mountain has wings, and they moved around and they were causing some disturbance. And so Indra cut off the wings of the mountains. And from that point on, they became stationary. Okay. So he's called, so Indra Devata is called as Nagabhida. So, and Sri Vishnu is, so in Puranas, is the younger brother of Indra as one of the Adityas. Okay, so there are Dwadasha Adityas who are the progeny of Kashyapa and Aditi. They're called Adityas. So there are 12 Adityas are there, one of whom is so Vishnu, and he is the younger one. So therefore, here he calls him as so Nagabhid Anuja. Okay, Lord Vishnu. Danuja Kulamitra. Danuja. This in this stotram, you will see words, the same words used in different meanings. This is Adi Shankaracharya. So he says, Danuja Kulamitra. Danujas. Who's Danujas? Danuja is the progeny of Danu, are called Danujas. So, or Danavas, they also called Danavas. So, Kashyapa along with Danu. From them were born Danavas. So, from Kashyapa with Diti, from them were born Daityas. Kashyapa from Aditi, from them were born Adityas. This is all part of our Puranic history. So he says, Danujas and Danavas and Daityas were Asuras. They were Asuras. So Asuras are people who are very extroverted and also cause a lot of disturbance. There's Asura Buddhis. And so such people, there were some of the Asuras were benevolent. Some of the Asuras like Bali, Mahabali, like Prahalada, they were all benevolent. Some of the Asuras were so malevolent, they create a lot of problems, like Hiranyakashipu. Some of the Asuras are also worshipped till today, like Rahu Ketu. So Rahu and Ketu were sons of Simmika, who was an Asuri. So they are worshipped to this day as one of the Grahas. So etc. So Asuras were those kinds of people. So here Danavas are people or beings who create a lot of negativity. So they go off very sense oriented, very extroverted. Such kind of a personality is called as an Asura Buddhi. So he says the one who is inimical to the unrighteous Asuras. That's what he may be. He's called like that. So the one who is Danuja Kula Amitra. Amitra means inimical. So the one who is inimical towards the people, towards these beings who cause disturbance in other dharmic people. So like that. Through karma, as a karma phaladata, as the one who gives the results of actions. So depending on their actions, they get certain kinds of results, all of which are born of the laws of Bhagavan. So thus he becomes instrumental in that particular way, as a karma phaladata. Mitra Shashi Drishte. Mitra Shashi Drishte. Mitra is Mitra. Mitra is now Surya Devata. So one whose eyes, one who sees with the eyes, which are in the form of Mitra and Shashi. Mitra is Surya, Shashi is Chandra. Okay. So Chandra Surya Ucha Netre. There is a prayer in Vishnu Sahasranamam. We recite this, Bhupadav Yasya Nabhir Viyad Asuranilas Chandra Surya Ucha Netre. In describing, like Purusha Suktam, describing the form of the infinite Bhagavan, the Virat Rupam, if I had to visualize the infinite Ishvara, how would I visualize it? What would be his form? Infinite has no form. But if I have to visualize it, then he is a form, huge form, whose feet are on the earth, whose head is in the heavens, and then whose eyes are the all the luminaries that are there in all of the universe, whose body, whose trunk is the regions in between the heaven and earth, and so on, like that. Beautiful description is there. It's a part of the Purvanga, the first portion of the before we start the Vishnu Sahasranamam. So that prayer, it describes the nature of Purusha. So he says, so here he is Surya, Mitra Shashi Drishte, who's Surya Chandra Ucha Netre. Drishte Bhavati Prabhavati. Drishte Bhavati Prabhavati. This is the samsara, this is the Jagat. So Drishte, when I see it, Drishte Sati. So when I see it, I experience the world, so it is there. But it is not there all the time. It is transient. The transient nature of this Jagat is described. Bhavati Prabhavati. It is there, it is not there. It is there as I see things, they change. Everything changes. My body is not the same. So every few weeks, my skin changes, my cells change. So my organ, everything, every part of us undergoes a recycling all the time, even within our lifetime. Okay. So this constant change process, it is there, it is not there tomorrow. Yet I experience it all in front of me, no doubt. So this is the nature of drishta nashta swabhavaha, is the nature of Jagat. I see it, so I experience it. I don't see it, I don't experience it. In sleep, it is all gone. In dream, it's another world. In waking, it's another world. This is the nature of samsara, he says. Drishte bhavati abhavati prabhavati. Then na bhavati kim bhavatiraskaraha. So bhavatiraskaraha means a disdain in recognizing the limitations of this world. For a wise person, what happens? So then, how is it? Is it not possible? How can I still look for permanence in this world that is impermanent? You know, is it not possible that I would turn away from it? Is the question. So, Nabhavati Kim, how can it not be so that one discovers some dispassion for this world that is so transient in its own nature? That is its Swarupam. That's what it means. Drishte bhavati prabhavati. So, na bhavati kim bhavatiraskaraha. Matsyadibiravataravata sada vasudham. Parameshwara paripalyo bhavata bhavatapabhitoham. Matsyadibihi avataraihi. Avataravata avata sada vasudham. Vasudha. Vasudha is Prithvi. So the Prithvi, the earth, who was always sada, always avata. Avata Rakshita. You are the one who always protected the earth, along with all that is there in it, of course. All the beings, and the one who were protected by you. How? Matsyadibihi avataraihi. By manifesting again and again, repeatedly, he says you manifested, and by that you protected this earth and all that is there in it, he says. Matsya Kurma Varaha Narasimha, the avatars in Satya Krita Yuga or Satya Yuga. Then Vamana Parashurama and Sri Rama in Treta Yuga. So Balarama and Sri Krishna in Dwapara Yuga. Kalki in Kali Yuga. So these are the Dashavatars well known. There are also other avatars talked about in the Puranas, like Vyasa, Dattatreya, and so on. So by all this, whenever there is a situation that requires a correction, a course correction in terms of dharma and adharma, then Bhagavan manifests himself in order to make that kind of course correction. So, and rescue humanity. And why does he, when does he do that? He does it in response to the prayers of the people, prayers of the beings. So, whenever there is a disturbance in dharma, in terms of dharma, then what happens? You see this in the Puranas all the time, that everybody prays, Everybody means dharmic people pray. Dharmic people pray, and then even the devas pray, and then they pray to the Lord. And as a result of the prayers, because prayers are karma, the form of karma, that karma yields its own results, and in the form of divinity manifesting, and in order for things to recover. That is the nature of the Jagat, he says. So, Matsyadibi Avatarehi, you were born, you manifested again and again in order to protect this earth. So he says, Aham bhavatapa bhitoham. I am bhitaha. I am afraid. I am fearful of what? Of all these afflictions that are connected to the world. So bhava is samsara. So bhavatapas are all the afflictions that are connected to this samsara, this world that I experience. I'm afraid of that. And so what? Parameshwara, O Lord, please, paripalyaha bhavata. May I be protected by you. So may I please be protected by you is my prayer, is my prayer. He already promised in Bhagavad Gita, Yada dharmasya glanir bhavati, so tadatmanam srijamyaham. He says, Tada, at that time I manifest. So this is something he told. And so I count upon him to rescue me, to save me from the fear of samsara. Damodara Gunamandira Sundara Vadanara Vinda Govinda Bhavajaladi Mathana Mandara Paramam Dharamapanayathvam me. Damodara, another name for Sri Vishnu is Damodara. So Damodara is one who's tied around the waist. So this all the Gopalas, the cowherds, they were called Damodaras because so they would tie a string around their waist. We do that you see that. But anyway, so but there's also a story connected to that. So as Sri Krishna, so as Bala Krishna, when he was out of control, so getting into a lot of mischief, then Yashoda, his mother, so she ties him around his waist to the big pot. So he's called Damodara. So he says, oh, she was restrained by his mother. Who you are, even though she seemingly restrained you, but you are Guna Mandira. Tells him you are Guna Mandira. Mandiram we know one meaning is the temple. Mandira also means an abode or residence. So you are the abode of all gunas. You are the abode of Trigunas, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamoguna. Maya, Maya Shakti. So Ishvara Shakti is Maya Shakti. Maya is inseparable from Parameshwara. Prakriti. He talks about Prakriti and Purusha. So Sri Vishnu, Narayana, never separate from Mahalakshmi. He has her always in his chest. He's called Srivatsa. He's the one who is beloved of Sri. These are all, you can see the connection in the Puranas, in the Shastram. Ishvara Shakti in the Veda talks about Ishvara Shakti and Maya Shakti. Ishvara Shakti is Maya Shakti, in fact. So Prakriti and Purusha together, they are not separate from each other. Narayana is never separate from Sri. So with Sri Mahalakshmi, so thus he says, this Trigunatmika, and she is Trigunatmika. Maya Shakti has threefold gunas, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. So Trigunatmika, Maya Shakti of Ishvara, he says, you are Guna Mandiraha, the one who in whom resides Shakti in all her forms. Sundara Vadana Aravinda, the one whose face is beautiful like the lotus, he says. This is incidentally. Govinda, hey Govinda, the one who is the lord of the goats, of the cows, or Gobihi, the one who is recognized by the words of the Shruti, the one who is recognized, in other words, Lord. Ishvara Narayana, understood and recognized through the words of the scripture, is meant by this name Govinda. It says, Bhava Jaladi Mathana Mandara. Bhava Jaladhi, the ocean of this Bhava, Sagara, the world of afflictions, he says, you are the one who's says Mathanam, the one who churns the ocean, the one who churns the ocean of the world that is experienced by the Jiva. Remember the Samudra Mathanam story, that churning, if ocean is samsara, when the churning takes place, what happens? All kinds of things come out. Precious objects come out. And then poison also comes out from there. And then ultimately Amritam comes from it. So that is, you are the one by your grace. He says this, my life as a jiva, I experienced this world. I experience my mind. I experience all kinds of emotions. My mind itself has this tug of war going on within it. And then, but this tug of war is necessary because from it arises all kinds of things. There are Asura Buddhi in me. There is Daivi Sampat. There is Asuri Sampat. This tug of war is there. This churning is going on. Churning is processing. In the processing, I gain wisdom and knowledge. So he says, it is by your grace that all this happens. You are the one who makes it all possible. At the same time, you are Paramaswarupam. You are the one who transcends all of this. You are not one who is bound by all of this. He says, Dharam apanayat tvam me. Please remove my fears that are born of duality, fears that are born of samsara. Please remove for me. Narayana Karunamaya Sharanam Karavani Tava Kaucharanau Iti Shatpadi Madiye Vadana Saroje Sada Vasatu. Narayana, Narasya Ayanam, the one who is Ashrayam, the one who is the refuge, the one who is the refuge of people is called Narayana. Narasya Ayanam, Narasya Ashrayam is Narayana. Karunamaya, the one who is full of compassion. Of course, that's why refuge. So where nobody seeks refuge, where you are not accepted, where you don't feel safe, where you don't feel secure. So naturally, you are the one where I find karuna. So the karuna to its maximum. And so thus you are my refuge. Sharanam Karavani Tavakau Charanau. I prostrate at your feet. I prostrate at your feet. Then he concludes with this. He says, concludes with this. Iti Shatpadi Madiye Vadana Saroje Sadavasatu. In this manner, these thoughts that are there in this stotram, Shatpadi stotram, this is all the sentiments expressed by the one, by the poet, by the poet saints, who wrote these things. So through these expressions, he says, so may this Shatpadi Stotram, may the words of this prayer always reside Vadana Saroje reside on my tongue in the form of lotus. Okay, in the sense, so the mouth itself is looked upon as lotus. Why? Because it has lotus represents purity. A lot of our deities are seated on the lotus. Mahalakshmi is on the lotus. Saraswati is seated on the lotus. Durga is shown seated on the lotus. So Brahmaji is seated on the lotus. So lotus represents purity. And these words that are there, Narayana name itself on my tongue, the name in my mouth. So this makes it like a sacred, like even a lotus. So he says, so may the words that are there in this prayer, may they always reside in me, may they always be in me. And so, in other words, may I always remain prayerful to you. Iti sada vasatu iti. Oh. So with this concludes this beautiful stotram. So I'll stop at this with this, and then we have a few minutes, and then we'll take some questions and comments. But let me conclude first. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.